Hello library friends, I'm Miss Liz and this is the August edition of Bookverse where I'm going to go over some of the new releases hitting our shelves this month. Stay tuned. This month we're starting off with some great nonfiction recommendations in the realm of science, and we're starting with Star Builders, Nuclear Fusion and the Race to Power, which is by Arthur Turrell. It's coming out on August 3rd. And this book is all about one of the biggest debates in our world, energy, fuel. Where do we get the energy to light up our world, to heat our buildings, to cool our buildings, to run life-saving machinery, and to get where we need to go? Or, just give yourself on that extra boost to get you through the day. This book covers some of the latest ideas in the field. Particularly, it is called Star Builders. It's about making a star in a lab. Now that kind of sounds like the start of a really horrific science fiction movie where the scientists make a star in the lab and the world starts to fall apart, the apocalypse begins. But the goal of making a star in a lab is nuclear fusion, and that's going to produce clean energy that can be used. Now I'm not going to claim I perfectly understand everything in this book, but if you're interested in science and the science of energy in particular, the possible changes we might see in the future, and exactly how close we're getting to living that science fiction dream, you should definitely check out Star Builders. Now that we've had a good science recommendation, let's talk about some bad scientists. Our next book is The Icepick Surgeon, Murder, Fraud, Sabotage, Piracy, and Other Dastardly Deeds Perpetrated in the Name of Science, which is by Sam Kean. And the title character, if you don't know of him, then you probably know of the procedure he helped to create and popularize. The title refers to Walter Jackson Freeman II, who created the transorbital lobotomy, also known as the Icepick lobotomy, which was a pretty popular treatment, you could say, of people who were in any way mentally ill or were perceived to be by the society or their husbands mentally ill. If you really want to know what exactly a transorbital lobotomy is, you can Google it, but just be prepared for a little bit of gruesomeness. So this book is not just about this person, it also covers a lot of other questionable to outright horrific things done for science. The tone of the book is a little bit sensational, but there are some pretty despicable things covered in the book. Sam Kean is not just wallowing in past horrors for the thrills and to sell some books. He does tie past medical abuses to vaccine hesitancy, lobotomies to failing in mental health care today. This book sounds like a mesh of horror, history, true crime, and science, so if you're interested in that and you have a strong stomach, definitely check out The Icepick Surgeon. Our first fiction recommendation is Clark and the Vision by Naomi Hirahara. It is coming out on August 3rd and it'll be on our shelves soon after that. And this historical fiction is set in the direct aftermath of the Japanese-American internment during World War II. The Ito family is released from Manzanar, but instead of being allowed to move back into their home in California, they are sent to a neighborhood for Japanese Americans in Chicago at the juncture of Clark and Division Streets. Aki's sister has already been living there, but before the family can be reunited, Rose is killed by a subway train. And Aki cannot believe her sister would commit suicide and believes that she's the only one who can find the true answers or is even interested in looking past what the police have said happened. And I think this is not really so much a period, but an aspect of this period in history that kind of gets overlooked and a little bit brushed under the rug. So it's nice to see a book written about it, looking at the aftermath and the effects that this had on a community. If you like historical fiction, especially World War II historical fiction, you should definitely check this one out. My Heart is a Chainsaw is by Stephen Graham Jones. It's coming out on August 31st and it'll be on our shelves soon after that. Now, are you a fan of horror films? If so, you should definitely check out My Heart is a Chainsaw. Are you a fan of dark, twisted coming-of-age stories? Then you should definitely check out My Heart is a Chainsaw. Or maybe you're looking for a critique of American colonialism and gentrification and the displacement of indigenous populations? My Heart is a Chainsaw is definitely for you. On the surface, this is just the story of Jade Daniels, a half-Indian outcast with absent and abusive parents and an absolute horror movie nut. But then murders begin happening in a new housing development, and she quickly recognizes the signs of a horror movie in the making. Everything is there. She knows what's going to happen, but when she brings it to the authorities, they obviously do not believe her. But the question becomes, do you believe her and everything she's telling you is happening? Now, this book sounds like a gory romp with a lot of deeper context to dig into under the facade of being just a homage to slasher films. There's definitely a lot packed in here, and I'm very hopeful that Stephen Jones will pull this off since his last book, Only Good Indians, had such great reviews and was such a good one. So, fingers crossed. My Heart is a Chainsaw, which has possibly my favorite title ever, is just as good as his previous works, and he can pull this off. If My Heart for a Chainsaw is not quite your cup of tea, perhaps you would enjoy Her Heart for a Compass by Sarah Ferguson, which is the story of Lady Margaret, who is in an arranged marriage. But, as you might expect, she cannot go through with the arranged marriage. She runs away from this extremely advantageous, very socially correct arranged marriage, and of course, she is shamed in the eyes of polite society. So Margaret takes comfort and solace in doing charity work, and through that charity work she finds a group of like-minded women who are trying to do what they can to escape the limits society has placed on them. And Margaret's story expands outside of Scotland. She goes to America, she travels, she meets a lot of people, has a lot of experiences, and perhaps she will even end up falling in love. Now, if you are interested in historical dramas, historical romances set in the Victorian era, if you enjoyed Bridgerton, this book is probably something you would enjoy, and you should definitely check it out. Thank you for joining me for this August edition of Book Briefs. The books we talked about today are Star Builders, Nuclear Fusion and the Race to Power, The Planet by Arthur Turrell, Icepick Surgeon, Murder, Fraud, Sabotage, Piracy, and Other Dastardly Deeds Perpetrated in the Name of Science by Sam Kean, Clark and Division by Naomi Hirahara, also coming out August 3rd, My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, coming out August 31st, and Her Heart for a Compass by Sarah Ferguson, coming out on August 3rd. Thanks so much for joining us today. As a disclaimer, I've not read any of these books out. All the information I'm giving you today is gathered from summaries and reviews that I have read of these books. Some of them are definitely going on my to-be-read list, though. And if you've read any of the books, or you end up reading or checking out any of them, let me know if they lived up to your expectations, and let us know what you're reading this month and what you're enjoying. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next month for another Book Briefs.